We are Living by the Word Ministries, a nonprofit organization dedicated to one cause. That cause is the truth given in the Holy Bible, which we believe is the inerrant and infallible Word of God, conferred to man to live by. We let the Word of God be the final authority as to what is or is not true. We strongly feel that if we do not expose false doctrine, we only encourage it. This ministry is designed to challenge you from an apologetic point of view. 1 Peter 3:15 instructs us to always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. This is Michael Tinsley. Please stay tuned while we arm you, the believer, to keep living by the Word. It's the noble thing to do.
Yes, indeed. It is a noble thing to do to keep living by the Word. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Living by the Word Ministries presentation of the Bible Information Brokers. This is a live presentation. My name is Daryl Easy D. Fulton, and my teammates and I are here to answer your questions from a biblical perspective. We want to be able to answer as many questions as we can, so I'm going to give you information on how you can contact this broadcast right now live and how you can communicate with us your questions so we can give you that biblical response. So right now, to be able to have a piece of paper with you, a pen, and get your Bibles out, and let's have an excellent broadcast based upon your calls and your questions. Because as you call in and as you send us email questions, that's how this broadcast will go. So you have that awesome responsibility and privilege at the same time to get your questions answered from a biblical perspective with the Bible Information Brokers team. So here's a number you can start dialing right now. Our own Eric is ready to receive your phone call right now. He's screening the calls for you tonight. He'll get you all set up and ready to go. Very nice guy. Well, that's true. It is true. You'll find out when you call him at 1-888-995-KKLA. 888-995-KKLA. Numerically, that's 888-995-5552. You can start dialing right now. Be one of the first to call in the broadcast. Don't wait towards the end of the show or the middle of the show, and you won't get your question answered. So go ahead and start calling in right now. Be one of the first to get your questions asked and answered. Again, from a biblical perspective, that's what we're all about. Or you can simply go to our website, and by doing so, you have access to the internet. Go to our website at BibleInfoBrokers.com. BibleInfoBrokers.com, and you can send us a question by email. And while you're there on the website, go ahead and navigate through, see all the different resources we have. You will see the archive shows we have there available and everything. And you can actually share through the social media that you have, through email and various social medias that you have, that you're listening to a live presentation of the broadcast right now. So go ahead and start dialing in right now. Eric is ready to receive your phone call. We have open lines at the beginning of all broadcasts at 888-995-5552, 888-995-5552, or go to our website at BibleInfoBrokers.com, and you'll be able to send us a question by way of email. Simply click the button that says Contact Us. Now, without further ado, let me introduce the other radio teammates other than Eric. We have Brian Allen, B.A. How you doing, sir?
What's going on, Mr. Fulton?
Doing well. You don't have to be so formal. You can call me Easy D or Your Majesty. Listen, we also have PCH, Professor Craig Hawkins. How you doing, sir? Yes, I heard some ruffling there. PCH, Craig, how you doing, sir?
Good evening.
Good evening, Craig. How are you?
I'm not bad. I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize.
Well, that's okay. We
for
know
the coughing that I will no doubt do during the program, but I'm still delighted to be here.
Okay, and Brian has that look on his face like, no lack of faith there, I'm sure. Anyway, we're going to deal with all that because, the body sometimes, how you say the flesh is, the spirit is willing, but the flesh gets weak. You can even hear it in my voice, crackling and things like that as we, watch this, Craig, as we approach, what's that magic number you're trying to reach? Say it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Sixth decade, baby. Welcome to the 6D Club. Come on over to the other side. Look at he's coughing already. You sound like one already. Anyway, folks, whatever you can call us right now.
I got to deal with this every week.
What'd you say, Craig?
Yeah. Denial's just not a river in Egypt.
Absolutely. So, folks,
there's always a twinkle in your eye, though, Daryl.
There you
Maybe
go.
A crackle in your voice, but there's a twinkle in your eye.
Loving the Lord, loving His work. Folks, go ahead and start calling in right now. We have these open lines. Go ahead, put Eric to work, get your questions asked and answered tonight. Start dialing now, please, at 888-995-5552 or our website at BibleInfoBrokers.com. Now, we'll come back as we we'll receive your call. Now, folks, I don't see people calling in, so take an opportunity to be one of the first. Go ahead and dial right now at 888-995-5552. Brian, and meanwhile, while folks are calling in and sending email questions, let's deal with something that you said you had on the table that you want to deal with.
Yeah, and Daryl is the Bible information broker, is the bad boys of radio.
There you go.
So people-
Bad meaning good.
Exactly.
Watch it. Don't give me that scripture on that one, Craig. I know what you're thinking of.
That song from Cops.
There you go. Bad boys.
No, it's true though, because a lot of times people call in with their questions and they don't get the answer that I think they want to hear, and we're just telling it to them like it is, like as the Bible instructs or as the Bible teaches. We talk about the passage a lot from Paul. Am I now your enemy because I tell you the truth?
Right.
And that's it's like, okay, folks, don't get mad at us. It's you got an issue with our answers, or take it up with God.
Yeah, exactly.
Period, because that's just the way it is.
We want to cut it straight.
Exactly. Anyway, here's the question. There was when I taught classic core this past Saturday, Joseph, he had a question, and I know we've dealt with this before on the radio, but I told him, what, I'll ask the question, let the professor go on a little bit in depth about it more than I have. And that question was, gentlemen, you have all these shows now, and they're coming up more and more and more about the ancient, the Egyptian writings, the what do you call it, the pyramids, and they're saying, well, all this stuff, how did it get here? How is it, why is it so accurate what they're drawing and stuff like that? And it's like, hey, that has to be God. And so Joseph wanted to know, if we could talk about it, and on top of that, what are some books that would be relevant to take a look at to deal with these issues? So we're going to start the show off with that. So Craig, I'm going to turn it over to you, my friend.
Yeah, excuse me. Never fails. Coughing attack when we start the program.
Don't worry about that, brother. It's live.
You're still saved.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, these things really, they're not more and more. They're old, and they just get recycled. And since people have not been around that long or have a short memory, things can get recycled every 5, 10, 20, 30 years, and people think they're brand new. These ideas have been floated by a number of people, Eric von Däniken, and all these other ideas of that this stuff came from other extraterrestrials, from humans or otherwise, some other planets or what have you. But if anybody knows anything about astronomy and the distance to travel, even the closest star to us, it's just 100,000 years away, 100,000 light years away. I mean, obviously nobody's even going to live. That's how much light travels per second, 186,000 miles per second. I mean, so the idea of somebody communicating with us are just so far-fetched. It's so improbable. So that's just one ground to think. If people just really don't understand astronomy, not astrology, but astronomy, if you look into that and see what it would take to travel from one planet to another, even within our galaxy, the Milky Way, it's mind-boggling. In other words, it's not humanly possible. Number one, I'm going to argue. Number two is people think, you took superhuman knowledge. Look, we have this idea that. Second point, that somehow these people are nincompoops or they're ignoramuses until we came along. Early humans had incredible intelligence. Indeed, from a Christian perspective, I don't have to argue Adam was probably one of the brightest guys who's ever lived, because closer to creation would be the better. But clearly there's people with incredible intellectual abilities. I think of Demosthenes, for example, Archimedes. There's a number of very early scientists, and even in the Middle Ages, people made incredible advancements. We often talk about the Dark Ages, but that's not really quite true. There are a number of advancements and inventions and what have you around the world, not just in the Western world, in China, and paper, gunpowder, and other things very early on. And so this idea that people are just kind of like Neanderthals and not very bright is just a caricature. It's a misrepresentation of reality. Second point. Third point is if the irony is these channels like History, Net Geo, and Discovery that have some of these goofy programs, they have other goofy programs on that say, look, we can show you how they did a lot of these things, like Easter Island. You think of Stonehenge. You think of, for example, the pyramids and what have you. Let me put it to you this way. It's amazing what you can do if you have 100,000 slaves. At its height, Egypt had as easily as many as over 100,000 male slaves. You put 100,000 male slaves to work on a project, even an incredible project, it doesn't take that long, relatively speaking. They made these giant earthen ramps. They would use logs as rollers. They would smooth them off, round them off completely, so they weren't oblong or what have you. And then they would attach ropes and things like that to this stuff, and people would pull from the front and push in the back, and they would use ropes and pulleys and what have you, and then make these ramps. And you can start out literally, with a gradual ramp. I mean, watch how they make the freeway overpasses and all that. They don't just put them over overnight, but they use a system of structures and whatnot, and they build, one upon another. And so even the pyramids, as big as they are, right, with these giant earth starting, of course, at level, and then a couple levels up, you're going to need a little slight earth ramp to move it up. And now it's going uphill a smidgen, of course, and it's going to be more drastic. But again, a lot of things you have a lot available in the middle of the east is dirt, it's sand. You got all the sand you could want. And so you're able to make these incredible, massive mounds, so that literally you can take the dirt right up to the very top of the pyramids. You wouldn't even have to go that high. But you can do that with 100,000 slaves, everybody carrying, what have you, and then with the pulley system, with these ramps, and that this stuff can be easily done, and it's been shown to be done even with far less than 100,000 people. I mean, they've done incredible things in modern and contemporary era without hardly having any of that type of workforce, just using logs, rollers, and what have you. So this idea, the speculation that it took, extraterrestrials or superhumans to do this stuff is far-fetched. In fact, it's a violation of what we call Occam's razor. William of Occam, Middle Ages, 1200s-ish, came up with what we call Occam's razor, and that is there's never a need, to put it in more pedestrian terms, there's no need to multiply hypotheses to explain something. In other words, almost always, or generally, the simplest explanation is often the correct one. I come home, the cookie jar smashed when my kids were little, and what's more likely, that my kids got into the cookie jars because they love them and they have chocolate, smeared on their face at any rate, and you can see little footprints, or they tell me that Zatoxians from a far galaxy heard the world, universe-wide, the fame of our chocolate chip cookies, and that they came and tied my kids up, but they did somehow manage to break free. My kids valiantly fought against them, but couldn't hold them off, and they stole the chocolate chip cookies. But they were clumsy, and they knocked over the mom's coveted cookie jar. What's more likely? I mean, I used an absurd example because it's patently easy to see. And my kids did it, not the Zatoxians. And so it is, if you will, with this idea that we need to postulate, like von Däniken or these extraterrestrials. Clifford Wilson, an archaeologist and thinker, debunked this stuff a long time ago. Crash Go the Chariots, still Crash Go the Chariots. Kelly Seagrave wrote a book, I believe it's The Great Flying Saucer Myth, and stuff like that. So Kelly Seagrave, Clifford Wilson, this stuff's been out there for decades and refuting this stuff. But, this stuff sells programs. It gets listeners on Sweeps Week or otherwise. So people tune in and go, wow, I never heard this before. Hey, it sounds, I hear people buying into this. Sounds pretty convincing. No, it's not. Been there, done that. It's been tried. And weighed in the balances, as we'd say biblically, and found wanting.
So, Craig, what were the books again? Crash what?
Excuse me. Crash Go the Chariots, Still Crash Go the Chariots by Clifford Wilson, Australian archaeologist and thinker, put a lot of time into this stuff. And also, for example, Kelly Seagraves, Seagraves, I think it's the Great, or something like the Great Flying Saucer Myth.
Gotcha.
You know, gentlemen, as people are calling in, I see that the lines are coming to life here. We also gave you the email address whereby you can send us email questions on the broadcast. This broadcast will go as you call in or email us your questions. Now, I have a plethora, if I can use that expression, of questions that I just came up today that we want to deal with, but I won't impose my questions on the broadcast because this broadcast is for you. Call us 1-888-995-5552, 1-888-995-KKLA, or go to our website at BibleInfoBrokers.com, BibleInfoBrokers.com, and send us an email question. Brian.
Yeah, we did have a question earlier. We have one from Alan, but we did have another one. Here it is, from Thomas, who called in, the Baal theory of Christianity. And he said this is a website about the Baal theory of Christianity.
I think we talked about that last week, if I'm not mistaken.
We did, but not.
Is there an additional question to it?
Well, we basically didn't have much to say about it.
Right.
Craig, did you want to add to that at all?
Well, no, I had stuff to say about it, but I have more to say about it now.
Okay.
And not because I've done homework. I studied the stuff, but he had a specific website in mind, which he didn't. I don't recall him telling us. So I just saw the email today and tonight, and of course I spend time with family and whatnot, so I don't do a lot of research on Sundays. But he gave us a reference, and I had a chance to look up the reference somewhat. I'd still like to see who the actual authors are of this website. I wasn't able to get to that yet. But this stuff, this is a great question to ask because it's in the genre of the previous one. This stuff's been weighed in the balance and found wanting years ago. This stuff's been beat up a long time ago. Not the people, but the theories.
Right.
There's a number of these books. You know, we saw it in Bill Maher's movie, Religiosity or what have you, where he interviewed Reagan, the Divine Savior book or whatever. There's a bunch of this type of stuff. A lot of books in the genre, and they make whole shows about this stuff that Christianity stole from other religions. And so his question, so I've heard this before, but his was specifically that this Christianity is uncannily similar, i.e., much more similar to Baal worship, which, by the way, they were involved in human sacrifices, so it's kind of funny. So, really, where does Christianity justify human sacrifice? No, it doesn't. But the claim is that Christianity is much closer in affinity to its content and its texture, its beliefs to Baal worship than it is Judaism. And that's just one of these brazen, bald-faced statements. It's laughable. And now I realize Thomas is not laughing because it's a serious claim and it needs to be addressed. But if you do your homework, you just go, this type of stuff. I don't even call it pseudo; it's pseudo. It's goofy. The scholarship, and that's why I'm trying to see who the guys or who wrote this because it's so bad. If they were in my graduate classes, they'd get an F. Not because I disagree with them, because there's no substance to the research. So again, the claim in a nutshell is this. Is that Christianity, it really looks like Christianity knocked off, stole from Baal worship. And you can throw in other religions as well. They say it came from Mithraism and Zoroastrianism and blah, 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 blah. These claims are out there. And so let me respond to this. Let me respond with some specific sources. Let me respond with some academic resources that where people really do their scholarship. The classic essay on this type of stuff in general is found in a book by Bruce Metzger. You know I was going to go there, Brian.
Right.
Bruce Metzger, the book is entitled Historical and Literary Studies. If you don't know, Metzger taught till his retirement at Princeton, which was often rated the #1 graduate school in America and very high in the world, if not #1 in the world. But at any rate, in this book, he has a number of essays, but the first one is the one we want. It's called Methodology in the Study of the Mystery Religions and Early Christianity. Methodology in the study of the mystery religions and early Christianity. And in this definitive essay, I'm going to start with it. I'm going to mention a bunch more, the whole books, is that he says, look, this claim that Christianity borrowed from the other mystery religions, what have you, of the Near East or Far East, if anything, it's the exact opposite. It's that they actually borrowed from Christianity because Christianity became so popular and was taking devotees from other religions, the mystery religions and otherwise, that they tried to adapt and adopted some views from Christianity to make them seem more contemporary and relevant to get back some of the followers they were missing. So he says the evidence actually is based on the scholarship. I'm not doing the scholarship right here. We don't have time. I've actually taught a class on this. But he says the evidence, and he goes through the evidence, is it's the exact opposite. Now, this person specifically is asking for stuff about the Baal worship aspect. And again, I'm hoping this, again, I just saw the email today. I didn't even see it till maybe, 5 o'clock tonight or something. So I was trying to access the website. There is a book by a guy named James Patrick Holding. Now, he does deal with this. He deals with a number of these claims. He has a section on it. It's not that large, but I have other ones coming up. But this is called, by James Patrick Holding, Holding, Shattering the Christ Myth. So the book is entitled Shattering the Christ Myth, again by just use Holding, Holding. It's a pretty good-sized book, and he deals with these type of claims a little bit on the Baal theory, but a lot on the related genre and the whole methodological issues and whatnot. I think this book is very helpful. But what I find amusing about this claim is, so this comes off like it's hot off the press. Here's scholarship we just found. This is the latest and greatest scholarship. Wow, Christians are going to have to deal with that. Well, let me give you some little advice here. Christians have dealt with this. Other thinkers, not even Christians, have dealt with this and refuted it years ago. For example, most people are not even going to know the author I'm about to mention. His name was J. Gresham Machen. We use the initial J. Gresham Machen. He taught at Princeton and then at Westminster in Philadelphia. He studied in Germany where he got his doctorate and whatnot. Anyways, he has a book called The Origin of Paul's Religion. The Origin of Paul's Religion. And he goes through the actual Pauline connection and Paul and Jesus and versus Judaism and shows how they really are complementary and how they flow from each other. But he has a number of pages where he deals with the Baal issue. So he specifically deals with the Baal issue, okay, and refutes it. Now, gentlemen, when do you think this book was written? So this is Machen, but when do you think this book might have been written? Maybe, just last year or something? This book was published in 1925.
Wow, yeah.
So, in other words, not quite, but almost 100 years ago, this stuff was trashed. And I mean academically. Machen was a first-rate scholar. But let's not stop there. We're having such fun. I've got a whole bibliography on this. This is just a handful of books, literally. Another great book would be Christianity and the Hellenistic World. Now, that's more of Greek thought and whatnot, but still deals with these type of issues. Christianity and the Hellenistic World by Ronald Nash. Christianity and the Hellenistic World. Actually, it was updated. It's the Gospel and the Greeks. You can find it in that version or the newer version, The Gospel and the Greeks by Ronald Nash, N-A-S-H. But let me just recommend one other book. This is a classic book. Most of our listeners is probably older than they are, and they've never heard of this guy. He was one of the foremost archaeologists in the day. He was a Middle Eastern scholar and an archaeologist. His name is William Foxwell Albright. William Foxwell Albright, A-L-B-R-I-G-H-T, and one of his famous books, which again, unfortunately most of our audience will have never heard of this. Too bad. That's the problem. See, knowledge has to be acquired. It has to be acquired to pass it on. You don't get this from even having intelligent, educated parents. You've got to study this yourself. But in the book, the name of the book is called From the Stone Age to Christianity. From the Stone Age to Christianity by William Foxwell Albright, subtitled Monotheism and the Historical Process. And a big part of this book, From Stone Age to Christianity, published, by the way, in 1957. And he also deals quite a bit with the Baal idea and alleged comparisons and affinities. And I know I'm waxing elephants here, but this just needs to be dealt with. I want people to know they can confidently believe in Christianity, not because we said so, but because the evidence is overwhelming. But you've got to do your homework. Maybe that's why I spent 15 years in the university. At any rate, besides teaching for 30 years this year. So here's the point. He deals with this, specifically the Baal theory and others, and he says, look, there's no evidence for this. That's not how this works. And so also, if I teach logic, the problem is people confuse that there is a similarity or some similarity, that somehow there are major similarities or a causal nexus. And so you always have to ask and deal with, last point here, what are called causal fallacies. Is one committing what's called a post hoc, ergo propter hoc fallacy, cum hoc, or non causa pro causa? In other words, that something are similar. Are they substantively similar? Let's say we have a case in the court of law, we're trying to prove plagiarism. You have to prove not just that there's some similarities in some writing, but that there was a source and that the other one actually borrowed or stole from the other source and committed plagiarism. And so the point is, there are some things that Lewis points out in his classic essay called Myth Become Fact. In God in the Dock, there's a phenomenal essay by Lewis, Myth Become Fact, and he deals with these type of issues. And in other words, part of it is these causal fallacies. People assume that there are similarities. Well, look, if there is a God and we all have basic needs and they're similar because we're all human, then we would expect certain motifs, certain themes to be common throughout many religions. But what you've got to prove is that this one stole from this other one. And William Foxwell Albright, and of course Metzger and Machen proved there is no causal connection. It's not there. And you could say, well, those books are really old. Well, actually, there's contemporary books, I could mention some of those as well, written in the last couple of years, who say the same thing. But what I'm saying is almost 100 years ago, this stuff was trashed as being not academic, not worthy of belief. And so Christians can be confident that Christianity is not a knockoff of some Near Eastern religion or Far Eastern or otherwise. And again, Albright and Nash, and I would add Holding to the list now, but certainly Metzger and Machen have disproven these ideas. So I'm not saying Christians shouldn't look into these things. They shouldn't be concerned, but you need to realize sometimes some things that sound new and really radical to you are bad old ideas and have been around for quite a while. But when people have not done their homework, and I understand that, you can't be exposed to everything. When you've not had a chance to study this stuff, it's not, wow, this stuff's really heavy, and I've got to deal with this. This is rocking my faith. And you can and should look into it, but don't be so willing to give up your faith so quickly without doing the research and the homework. And that's part of our ministry. That's what we do. That's what we spend our life doing, this type of research. And so I'm glad, hopefully this helps Thomas. He can get any one of these books through a interlibrary loan system or just buy one of them on, wherever on the internet. And you can look into this. And I actually I'm going to try. I'm not promising. I'm going to try this week to actually go to this website again and find the authors and find the sources they use. But more than likely, it's the same nonsense that's floating around in all the other books. It is not academically rigorous. It has the appearance of academia. Let me just say, here's my last point, I promise, on this. There are times when, not just law students, but when lawyers submit a brief or a motion to a judge, and they think they've done an incredible job of argumentation. And the judges sometimes laugh at this stuff. Sometimes their arguments are so bad or so poorly done. It's not that the person doesn't have the conclusions they're arguing for, but it's not supported. They don't make the argument. They intentionally or not assume it, and their argument is really bad. And often what will be written on their brief or motion, or certainly law professors will do, is put on the term conclusory. Conclusory means you've jumped to a conclusion and you did not support it, and this is a bad work. In other words, as a law student, let alone a lawyer from a judge, you do not want him uttering the word conclusory about your writing. It means you've done really schlocky research. It's really poorly done. And so some things sound really academic. They look academic. They have the veneer, surface of academia, but they're really lacking. And these ideas are of that genre.
PCH, in the laws of logic, what would be that equivalent to what you just said in regards to the court and the judge laughing at the brief?
Well, conclusory is a good word. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow. It doesn't follow. But this is, I guess, the closest thing here would be a form of a hasty generalization. Okay. It's two things. It's a hasty generalization. The research is not rigorous, not thorough, not deep enough, and it's also a form of what's called argument ad verecundium, which is argument ad verecundium, and in Latin, you have to use really Latin-sounding names to scare and influence and terrorize people. I have to do that as a professor. But
and you enjoy it.
Argument ad verecundium is basically where you use authority but use it illegitimately. In other words, you claim a person's authority but they're not, or you say it's true just because some quote-unquote authority says it, whether they're a real one or imagined. But the evidence, the data itself, the data and argumentation is flimsy, is substandard. And so that's a argument ad verecundium, and in this case related to, I would say, a hasty generalization as well.
Appreciate that, PCH. Ladies and gentlemen, all those words mean what? You can call in. You can send us an email question. You can do that right now. We see you, April. We're going to get the calls to Nicholas. We're going to take care of that call. We got a few people that dropped off, but we do have your questions. We're going to deal with that, Alex, your question as well. So hang in there, maintain, keep listening to the broadcast if you had to do something else. But, folks, you can join in right now live by calling Eric. He's ready to receive your phone call at 1-888-995-5552, 1-888-995-KKLA, or go to our website at BibleInfoBrokers.com. Now, Brian's going to give you information about why you're on that website of BibleInfoBroker.com, how you can participate in keeping this broadcast alive, help us to take care of the financial costs involved with that, and be a participating partner if you find us as far as getting information out to you worthy of your consideration. Brian.
Yeah, and before I talk about that, Daryl, Greg, the book, Crash Go the Chariots, $3, $4 at Amazon.
I'm surprised you didn't try to find it for 25 cents. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting so older now, so I guess the price actually is going up.
Oh,
but
well,
yeah, one time.
Oh, well, here's one
for 25 cents.
47 used from $1.95. So
there you look
now
at
the other author I couldn't find. Is it Kelly Seagram?
Seagraves.
Oh, Seagrave. Okay.
Seagraves.
Okay, I'll look that one up as well. And that was like the Great Flying Myth.
The Great Flying Saucer Myth, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but the other one, like $1.95. Well, anyway, getting to what Daryl was talking about, folks, this is a free-supported broadcast, plain and simple. This show stays on because of your donations and your prayers. Okay, let's be real. Prayer is powerful. It is spiritual warfare, and so we want to thank those that pray for us, and we're going to ask those that don't pray for us to pray for us. Definitely want to do that. But on the other end, too, it does take your donations to keep this radio show on the air. And there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go to the website. You go to BibleInfoBrokers.com, BibleInfoBrokers.com. And from there, you can just click on Donate and Support. It'll take about 1-2 minutes to get it done, and you're off and running. And the donations will come to us. You don't have to write out a check, envelope, stamp, none of that. I don't know, what are stamps these days, Daryl, about $50?
Probably.
Anyway, but, there's those that do want to send in their donations via mail, and that's great, too. And sometimes they do it because they like to leave a note and a message and something like this. And I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again this week. Do not apologize that you can't give more. Please don't do that. Absolutely. We really appreciate whatever that amount is. Lord. Whatever the Lord leads you to give, we're appreciative. Now, if you do want to mail in your donation, make it out to LBTW, P.O. Box 90477, P.O. Box 90477, Los Angeles, California, 9009, 90009. And as I always say, I want to thank you in advance for what you give. Thank you.
Really appreciate that. And look, even though Brian talked about believing and praying for the broadcast, those of you that are listening to our broadcast, you're not believers, you may be atheist, agnostic, or just don't simply believe, but you enjoy the broadcast and you find a benefit in it because it challenges you to do various research in the various belief systems that you have. And we appreciate you listening in. But, your money spends as well. I mean, there's no prejudice as far as that is concerned. So please, if you find us worthy and some benefit to you as far as listening to broadcast, mind-believing friends out there, you can also give it the same resources that Brian also suggested. I would also throw out this suggestion to those folks that are like me who don't like to pay fees in any kind of way, form, or fashion. If you have online presence, you can go to your bank on your online presence and set up a recurring payment whereby you can send those financial donations to this broadcast the same way, just by by going online on your online presence. So again, we thank you in advance. It's just a way. And remember, in America right now, you can still give up to 50% of your income to nonprofits and get a tax deduction. So you do the mathematics and do the wise thing for your particular situation. And we thank you in advance for that. Brian, we're going to go back to the calls. We had a person that did call in and wasn't able to stay on the line, and we're going to deal with his question, Alex, and also deal with Nicholas' question where he couldn't stay on sort of all together when we give a talk about why we do what we do in regards to our central figure, Jesus Christ, towards the top of the hour and the other side of the hour. But right now, let's go back and take some of these phone calls that we asked people to call in. April, we see you there. Lee, we see you. We're going to get to you in a moment. But I want to give the number again and a website address where you can call in and email us your question. The phone number to call Eric right now and to get on the broadcast is 1-888-995-5552, 1-888-995-KKLA, or you can go to our website at Bible Info Brokers, the one that Brian mentioned a little bit earlier, and give us an email by simply contacting us that way. But let's go right now to the phone calls and take a call from April. April, thanks for calling in and holding on.
Hi.
How you doing?
You this evening?
No worries, doing well.
Okay, I hope you can bear with me. It's kind of like maybe 5 short questions that are all related to genealogy.
Are you trying to give us a staccato question build up into something, some kind of crescendo? It's like, go ahead, April. Let's see what we can do for you.
Well, I was trying to, I was reading a book by Francine Rivers about the Ruth book where she implied that Salmon and Rahab were the parents of Boaz, and I'm like, what? I didn't know Rahab was Boaz's mom. So I double-checked the genealogy, and I found some genealogies, such as Joseph's lineage genealogy in Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 17, show that backs that up. But on Mary's genealogy in Luke chapter 3, verse 23 through 38, it does not support that. It does, and or at least the footnote. At least the footnote says that. Maybe it's a footnote. Well, if you want to know my resource, is the MacArthur Study Bible, ESV footnote, says that Rahab and Salmon probably were not the parents of Boaz, even though it lists that there probably was a big gap between them of generations that are not listed. So he might be her like great grandmother or something instead. And so when I was trying to, so that's first one question, why they would not mention the generations in between, because I guess they say the time of Joshua was not the time of Boaz. But then when I was reading further, I found more discrepancies. In Mary's lineage, a ram is not listed at all. It's missing. But hers adds 2 more that Joseph's doesn't have at all. Like hers includes Arni and Admin, A-R-N as in Nancy, I, and A-D-M-I-N, after Hezron and before Nadab. And so I was wondering why that is a discrepancy, why Joseph doesn't list them. And then with Joseph, well, most of the lineages, it says Aram, A-R-A-M, but or at least in this commentary, but in, I think, Joseph's one, it says Ram, R-A-M, so it's a different, I don't know if it's the same name but different spelling, but I think I answered that question because I think I found a footnote that said Aram is Greek, so I'm assuming Ram is Hebrew.
Okay, well now, April, let me direct this thing so we can get right to the heart of your question, because it is I hear a lot of different questions.
There's one last. There's two more, just real quick, just to throw them out there. Okay, on Vernon McGee's commentary of this same genealogy, he doesn't put Perez as the son of Judah and Tamar. He puts Pharez, P-H-A-R-E-Z, so I don't know if that's a different spelling for the same name. Mm-hmm. And also, in Mary's lineage, instead of Salmon for the father of Boaz, it says Salah, son of Salah, S-A-L-A. Right. So I don't know if that's an abbreviation or different spelling for Salmon, or if it's talking about a different person, but there's like all these different indiscrepancies that are bothering me.
I understand.
I wanted to get to the bottom of it.
PCH, let's see if we can do a Columbo on these names, and let's give April
Sorry.
something on that. No, it's no problem.
Probably
no
no
problem.
one else in the entire world cares but me.
No,
so-
Let me ask you.
Oriented.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Do you have a book called The Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties?
Yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Okay. Did you
You guys told me to buy it a long time ago.
did
and I
you check any of your questions in there?
No.
Okay.
That's okay. I mean, we appreciate
Okay.
you calling in on that, but you still have that resource. PCH, let's go ahead and deal with this, Columbo PCH.
Excuse me, I apologize again. No, these are great questions, April, but you're actually not the only one who cares
That's
about
right.
this. This question comes up dozens of times.
Oh, good.
So
I don't want you to
that's-
think I'm being anal or something, but
No,
it,
you're
it
correct.
matters
You're
to
fine.
me.
Well, Freud might have one analysis, but we're not Freud, so we're going to give
I'm
you
sorry,
a
I
pass
couldn't hear
on
you.
that one. So yeah, that's what our friend Sigmund would say. But we have a good authority. He has a different idea now. But at any rate, so first of all, I do want to recommend the book. Actually, that Brian, you do have. I want to encourage you to actually read through it because he has a great section on this. Also, the book, by the way. So that was Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties by Gleason Archer. And I also, two of my favorites, that's one. And the other one is Haley's Alleged Discrepancies of the Bible. Okay?
Can you tell me which pages and I can look them up?
I don't have the books in front of me,
Okay.
but at break time, I can go, if you'll still be listening, if you'll make that commitment, then I will make a point at break time to go track mine down. I don't have them in front of me. I'll just do it right now.
But they do answer all of those questions?
Yeah, and they have, but Archer doesn't just give a pay. I mean, he's got quite a bit on this, and so does Haley. But I'm going to give you something. I'm not just referring you to them, but I do need to point out a couple things here. So, number one, well, there's going to be differences because, by definition, number one, the Matthean account, Matthew 1, is Joseph's lineage, right? And it actually starts back from Abraham, whereas Luke 3, the Lukean account, is Mary's. Okay, so they're two different genealogies. Now, they have some similarities because they come from the same family lineage, but there's going to be some differences. The most notable, among others. Now, you've already pointed out some of the differences, okay? But the biggest one right off the bat is that Joseph's lineage, David is one of his relatives, but it comes through David's son Solomon. But if you look carefully at the Lukean account, Luke 3, David had many sons, by the way, and the son is Nathan. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I
so
already knew that, but I mean, when you go so far back, it should be the same people, though. After Tamar.
Not necessarily, yeah.
No.
I mean, before David, it should be the same people.
No, it shouldn't, actually. That doesn't follow. What does follow? No, it's just they should cross at some point. They have to cross at some point. You can literally look at this like an X. And now, I'm not... You could have a genealogy that not only goes back to a common ancestor and then is the same, but you could... but all for this to be accurate is that they need to cross somewhere. There needs to be the similarities. Now they have these two things in similar. Adam and Eve are both their ultimate great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. That's the case, and then their lineage to a certain point. And what matters is that they come through David. That's all that matters. So
I saw that it only differentiated when it came to Solomon and Nathan. On the rest of it, it shows that it's the same.
There's quite a bit, but let me point out that that's not correct. Okay, and I'm going to show you this. Okay, so
Okay.
let me give you an example in just a moment here. I am just getting all my bearings, trying to read this really quickly to find the act. Actually,
I even tried to write it out, like to add.
Well,
to
good for you. I want to encourage
it
you.
took forever.
That's great. But I'm going to show you that you missed a couple, and I can point them out to you. I'm just trying to locate the name real quickly here. Here we go. Just go to Matthew 1:11, and I do need to point out that spelling, orthography, if you will, names change over time, or the spelling of them changes, or sometimes people have two names. They have two names that they go by, and there's a number of reasons for this. But what I want to draw your attention to is...
Why would they have two names?
Well, because sometimes they have two competing cultures. And it's not uncommon. People who come from one culture often have two names, or they change their name to fit into a new culture, society. So people do that even today. It's not as common, but it still happens. I have friends who have two names, and it depends. And those are on court documents, and they can sign both of them, but they use whichever one is more appropriate to a given culture they're relating to. Okay, but let me give you an example to show you the difference here. So one of the differences in Matthew chapter 1 verse 11, in verse 11 it says, and Josiah the father of Jehoiachin. Now Jehoiachin, so it's either he has two names. Jeconiah is one of his names, but he's the same guy. Jeconiah. In fact, in my Bible it actually uses Jeconiah in the text, but in others it uses verse 12. It refers to him as Jehoiachin. But here's now that person is not in the lineage of Luke, and I'll tell you why. Because this person had a curse put upon him that none of his descendants to the 10th generation could sit upon the throne. This guy is in 10 generations within Jesus. If Jesus had been a biological relative of Jehoiachin or Jeconiah, take your pick, whatever name you want to use, he could not have been the Messiah. He would have had no legal claim to the throne. So let me just say this. At break time, I'm going to go find my books, and give you the exact pages, okay? But let me just say this. So I just off the top of my head just found one right there that you missed, okay? So
Wait,
in other words,
he was cursed? Do you know the verse that says he was cursed?
I do. Jeremiah 22, 24 through 30. So you get a chance. Yeah, don't take my word. Look it up at Jeremiah 22, verses 24 through 30. Now, let me finish my thought here. I'm not just telling you go read those books. I want to give you some information. So genealogies, sometimes they can meet at some place and then go back exactly parallel. But all that was necessary for these genealogies is to cross at some point, and they do at David. But they only cross at David because, again, Mary's lineage is through Nathan. And I know you know this, but I'm just saying it again for others listening as well. And Joseph's was through Solomon, both legitimate sons, I should say, of David. Now, next point. So we argue, the argument is that Jesus gets the legal right to the throne, not the biological right, but the legal right through Joseph, who is an heir, is in the lineage of David. So he has a right to the throne. He gets a legal right. But as I mentioned, if he was a literal biological descendant of...
It would have to be through Mary.
Yeah,
Joseph
exactly. Here we go.
Seed.
There you go. And so he gets his biological claim to the lineage of the Messiahship, the kingship, through Mary. But I still want to give you one more complication. You may know this, you may not, but I want to throw this in here. But what happens is, it appears that Mary had no brothers. The reason is we actually have some of the lineages from our Jewish friends. And so she has no brothers, and so the inheritance was supposed to go to her brother or brothers. She has none, so there is one form of what's called levirate marriage, and that is where a Jewish, in this case Mary's father, would adopt Joseph as his legal son and give him the right of heirship. And so that's actually what happens. And we know this for other reasons. When it goes to the lineage of Mary, it tells us in verse 23, now Jesus himself was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. He was the son, so it was thought, of Joseph. But notice, the son of Heli. But wait a minute. Heli is Mary's father. So how could they say son of? Well, because he was adopted through levirate adoption into the family of Joseph. So even though Joseph marries his daughter, he can and does adopt him as a son. So now Jesus has both the legal right and the biological right without the curse of the biological right through Joseph himself, but through Mary. So this actually works out beautifully.
Okay.
So if you will hold on, my commitment to you is at break time, I will try to track down my two books.
Maybe I should reword my question for clarification. Like, when Mary has admitted some names and added other names, that's because they're only in her family, not in Joseph's family?
Yes.
And are those all males, sons? And
Yes.
And is
typically,
Sala the same name as Salmon? Is it just a different spelling?
To the best
and
of my
is around
knowledge.
the same-
To the best of
sorry,
my
what was
knowledge. Sorry, to the best of my knowledge. Yeah, we're cutting up. The best of my knowledge, yes.
I keep talking over you, so I don't hear your answer. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet so I can hear it.
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, yes. There's sometimes, for various reasons, there are different spellings of the same person's name. So, to the best of my knowledge.
And Perez
not actually,
is the
not
same
not
name
Solomon.
as Perez?
Wait, sorry, not Solomon, because Solomon is not in the lineage of Mary, so it would be another individual.
Oh, because I think it said Boaz was the son of Sala, but I thought in the other ones it says Boaz is the son of Salmon.
No, Boaz is the son of Obed. Salmon. Yeah. No. Salmon is not the same as Solomon. I apologize. Yes, that's what I was saying. Salmon, Salmon, is not the same as Solomon.
Am I pronouncing it wrong? Salmon, kind of like the fish. How do you pronounce it in Hebrew?
It'd be similar to that. You have much more guttural sound. Okay. Another spelling of that is Sala, Sala. But this person, let me be clear. This person is not Solomon.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sala is not Salmon. It's not a different spelling. It's a completely different person.
Sala is Salmon, but Sala is not Solomon.
Yeah, no, I didn't think he was King Solomon. So that's like David's son.
You had one last question for time's sake. One last question. Yes, you talked about Ruth, but you mentioned Rahab. Rahab is in the lineage of Jesus, yes.
No, that wasn't my question. Like, I was trying to ask, is Pharez the same person as Perez, but a different spelling? Because that's how Vernon McGee puts it in his genealogy as the son of Judah Tamar is Pharez, but all the others say Perez, P-E-R-E-Z or P-H-A-R-E-Z.
It's Perez. Perez would be the correct.
So was Vernon McGee, did he misspell?
J. Vernon McGee I really appreciate him, a great man, but we all make mistakes. And this is one of them. The correct name is Perez, and the spelling would be P-E-R-E-Z. Mm-hmm.
As in Luke 3:33 there.
So you have to understand something. When there are people who specialize in certain areas, so we don't claim to specialize in every area. We like to think we have a breadth of knowledge, but we specialize in certain areas. J. Vernon McGee was a great Bible teacher, but and I'm not putting him down. I mean, I should have such freedom in my ministry. The guy's dead, and he's still having an impact through the rebroadcasting of his programs. But he's covering the whole Bible. Nobody's an expert on the whole. Nobody is the definitive specialist on every area of the Bible, and so he's going to make some mistakes as we do. And so, look here, modern translators and people who spend their life doing this stuff. It's Perez, and so I would say, with all due respect to J. Vernon McGee, as great as I think as funny and neat guy as he was, he made a mistake.
Well, one mistake, ladies and April and Professor, one mistake I won't make is that at the time we come to the top of our break. So, April, we do appreciate the information. I want you to do me a favor while Professor is rushing to his book. I want you to rush to the very book that he's going to go to now and see if you can beat him to get the answer as well, so that we can maximize the time in regards to getting that question answered about the page numbers and things like that. So go ahead and get your book out, the Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties, and see if you can get to the answer just as the professor is going to be doing during the break, okay?
Okay, so I'll just put my phone on hold, put my phone down on the table. And
No, what we're going to do is Professor's going to come back with those page numbers, and you can just go ahead and read during the break and during the broadcast as we take the other calls as well, okay?
Oh, okay, so I won't be on the air anymore.
No, that's correct. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Good questions, April.
Excellent question. Professor, you know what, April, people may be sitting out there saying, well, that was pretty technical. Well, listen, these questions that we have, like Brian said, there is no foolish question. There may be some foolish answers we may give if they're not correct, but the questions coming from the heart and mind of each individual is there for a reason, and we want to be able to give that biblical response. So PCH, all due respect to our listening audience, you should appreciate the time, and sometimes we do spend more time than we would like, but we find that these questions are necessary and the answers are necessary to give from a biblical perspective, because the Bible, if it was just that simple, we wouldn't need the gifts that God give us, and the fact that people like Professor Brian, myself, and everyone that's associated with the broadcast from a teaching level, we're commanded to cut it straight. And if we don't cut it straight, we've got some woes going on with our lives. But right now, I don't want to get into a woe of a part-time break, so give us a call at 888-995-5552, 888-995-KKLA. On the other side of break, we'll come back with more of the Bible Information Brokers.